Hey there, we are live. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. My name is Jay Angel, and I will be your podcaster for this evening. This evening, I have a guy who's been on, I think Mike's been coming on the podcast for at least 4 or 5 years now, been on several times. This time, it's special. What you are looking at here, folks, is a tournament champion. And he won that tournament under difficult conditions. There are impossible conditions. He had a guy who was first day using forward-facing sonar, but the guy was nice enough to boat position. Mike could cast and make the best of a bad situation. He was fishing on Lake of the Ozarks. I've been on there before, and I had a tough time on that lake. But without further ado, how you doing tonight, Mike?
Hey, Jay, it's great to be here. I'm doing great. Unfortunately, I'm coming to you from my hotel room as I'm in the middle of a transitioning job. So I don't have any of my fun, cool gear with me, but I do have a couple of my my trophies here that I just won.
Nice. So what tournament did you win?
So it was the final tournament of the year on the Toyota Series. Toyota Series is an MLF series. It's a pretty big national event. There's guys from all over the country there. And especially with it being the last tournament of the year, it was the last qualifier for people to make the national championship. So it was a pretty stacked field, guys that were trying to get in. And yeah, it was at Lake of the Ozarks in the end of September. And traditionally a pretty tough time of year, that transition between summer and fall. It really doesn't start getting good there until, right this time of year, this middle to end of October. So I was really concerned about how challenging it was going to be, especially after a couple months earlier, we had the opener. It was the Plains division. So we had the opener at Kentucky Lake at Lake of the Ozarks in February. Then we had Kentucky Lake in May. And then we finished with Lake of the Ozarks again in September. And the opener was pretty tough. There was ice on the water. In practice, you could hardly get out. I think the water was 36 degrees.
Oh, man.
Spent 2 full days on the water and never caught a fish. So I'm like, oh man, I'm going back there again. But it was a pretty good year. I'm not going to complain, obviously, because take that one. Actually, it's been a pretty good couple of years. Take that opener out of the equation. And last year, I double qualified for the national championship in 2 different Toyota divisions.
Nice.
I finished in the top 25 in the Southern Division, which was the Florida, South Carolina swing. And then I actually won Angler of the Year up in the Northern Division, which is your Champlain, Potomac, and Thousand Islands division. So I had a great year last year, and then got to a super tough tournament at Lake of the Ozarks in with the ice, but then bounced back at Kentucky Lake, made championship day again. I actually led after the first day at Kentucky Lake and dropped back a little bit, but still made the top 25. And then came to Lake of the Ozarks and had a really good tournament.
Wow, that's a tough place to fish. My mom lives in northern Arkansas, right on the Missouri border, and I've been to Lake of the Ozarks.
It's a good lake at times of the year, but not only was it transition time, but it was a time when the fish were getting from deeper out back to the shallow docks. And if you're a co-angler fishing behind guys flipping docks, you do not have a lot of options, especially if you get those local guys.
No, you don't.
But you got to figure out a way. Our job in the back of the boat is to stay out of the guy's way and find a way to catch fish, even though you don't have a lot of opportunity.
Adapt and overcome. I love it, man. And fishing as a co-angler, I only fished a couple of times as a co-angler. It really taught me to think outside the box. And I actually had a really good pro the first tournament I ever fished. I was a co-angler, and I didn't know what to do. He was throwing a frog, and we were out in the middle of a huge area up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and everybody was throwing frogs. And I started putting on a ribbit frog, and he's like, you're not really proficient in that, are you? I said, no. And he said, well, what do you like to do? And I said, well, wacky rig. He said, think about it, man. 3 feet of water, weed mat underneath that. What should you be doing? I said, well, either a shallow running crankbait or wacky rig.
Yeah.
I actually first tournament I ever fished, I took home a check. I got 3 fish.
Yeah, sometimes you
very big. They were like 2 pounders.
Yeah, sometimes you outthink yourself, and I've been doing this a long time, and I fall into that situation too, where you try to force something to happen just because you see someone else doing it. But
Yes.
you gotta stay within your game, and a lot of times when I'm fishing, I don't even watch the guy in front. I mean, not in an impolite way, but I turn my back to him just because I don't want to be influenced with what he's doing. I just want to fish my own stuff and not think about what he's doing.
I really think, and Rob Welsh and I have talked about this at length for hours. You know, co-angling is an art within itself.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, you, you have to be a great fisher.
Well,
It's not easy. It's not
no,
easy. You know,
as much
most
as I love
most of the
fish,
shows are nice.
yeah, as much as I love fishing out of the front of the boat, and I've done that before, local regional events. The hardest thing to do, in my opinion, is to fish as a co-angler because it doesn't matter how much you practice. You never know who you're drawing. You never know what you're fishing until that morning or maybe the night before if they're lucky enough to get some information. You pretty much go in blind every day and have to figure it out behind a guy
Exactly.
that's catching them.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And you can't bring a stack of tackle boxes 3 feet tall either.
No, and I feel naked every tournament I go to because I don't have all my stuff with me, and just the process of trying to pack any possible scenario into 6 boxes that fit in a bag is
Yeah.
daunting.
Well, the next thing I'd like to talk about, good friend David Swinside at Drank Crazy sent me this. I can't wait to get out there and use this. I'm going to be bass fishing with this, but the first thing I want to do, the reason that he sent them to me, is I'm going to be red fishing and speckled trout fishing. Just look at this thing, guys. Look at that. I don't know if you can see that, but it has that on the top, and he was trying to explain to me how it's rigged, but he sent one rigged any.
Yep.
You want to explain why they rig it like that, Mike?
Absolutely. So I've been testing this for a while with David. I've worked with David a lot for the past 7 or 8 years. And he's with this new company now, and he was gracious enough to bring me on board with him again. And this lure is called a skibble. It's actually a soft plastic bait, but it's a solid floating bait. So what that allows you to do with that particular setup that you just showed, when you hook it sideways, it not only floats on top of the water, but it pulls off to one side and it just quivers on top of the water. And then you can kind of give it a hard jerk and it'll go underwater and turn, and you can walk it back the other way and just kind of quiver it along the top of the water. And it's a really interesting presentation that fish haven't seen before. And actually, I happen to have this handy. Imagine the coincidence. This Bassmaster magazine that just came out with John Cox on the cover. There's a whole article in here about the technique that David has named quiver trap. So you can see that bait here that you're showing. Yeah, and you can see it's called the quiver trap technique. And really what it does, like I said, it's a topwater technique, and it's just a presentation they haven't seen before, where that solid body, soft plastic floating bait, with it rigged in the side, you're pulling it, and it's just kind of quartering off to the side, and then it'll flip over and it'll quiver and quarter back to the other side. And it's really cool. Not only do they have that, yeah, exactly, zigzagging across the water.
It crabs from side to side. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it does take a little bit of patience to figure it out. David and I have done some techniques in the past that take kind of a little bit to figure out, but once you figure it out, it's pretty deadly, and this is going to be one of those. But what's also cool about it is it comes in a hard bait version too that's called the Pull 90, and it does the exact same thing. It's a floating bait, and the way it's rigged and the way the line tie is located, it does the exact same thing, but in a hard bait, and I've had some really good success with that as well.
That's just crazy. I mean, so you said that you get some explosive strikes on these.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because you got the combination of it being a topwater, which obviously alone gets some pretty aggressive strikes, but it's something they haven't seen before, and it's truly a dying, fleeing fish representation. You know, it's not a walking bait, it's not a popper. It really doesn't have a category, which makes it unique. It's brand new. Um, you know, and then like I said, David named it quiver trapping technique, and that lure is called a skibble. And I just take it where you have it rigged up again on that orange one,
Yeah.
or that pink one, whichever one he sent you. Yeah, so you can take. I use a 3 or a 4/0 wide gap hook like that, and you can see it's just kind of rigged on the side. So imagine when you're pulling it with your line straight towards you. You know, it's going to have that resistance of the body that's going to be pulling it to the left or to the right. And all you got to do is reel it in and just kind of shake it real fast. Almost like if you're, I don't know, if you're frog fishing and you got some rattles in the frog and you're trying to keep it in place and just shaking it and rattling it. Or if you're on a, think guys, if you're on a bed, you're bed fishing and you just want to quiver something in place and you just kind of shake real quick and real hard. You can do that with this same technique, but as you're reeling slow, and that's kind of the action you want to put into it.
Okay. David and I were talking about this. He says that he uses a bait caster. And I said, with something this big, I would probably, and I'm off, if I'm fishing the marshes, I'm probably going to be using a medium spinning rod with oh geez, I'm very distracted, with braid.
Yeah.
In a 10-pound fluoro leader.
Yep.
Because that's just what I feel. I like to fish with what I have confidence in. And I can cast a spinning rod so much more accurately and work it so much. I have so much more confidence with that thing in my hand. It feels like an extension of my arm.
And it's a technique that can work both ways. I actually use a bait caster with the skibble, with the soft one, but for the pull 90, I use a spinning rod. And I don't know why. It's just, as I was testing, that's what I felt comfortable with. And it just works for me. And I think it's just kind of the different ways you can impart action on it. But to me, just the comfort of having a bait caster with that technique, with the floating skibble in the quiver trap, is just the most comfortable for me. And I'll use heavier line. I'll go up to 15-pound line with that fluorocarbon, so it's not as visible, but it's drawn some pretty aggressive strikes.
That's what I'm excited about, because saltwater fish are so much more aggressive to begin with. And it's going to be exciting the first time a big redfish comes up there and just explodes on it.
Because go ahead.
Redfish don't do the toilet bowl. They don't come up and open up their mouths, because their mouths on the bottom of their body, so they have to come up and I've even heard that they'll come up upside down and grab it, but I've never seen that. So it's so exciting.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to next year fishing back up in the north, because I had moved to the Midwest and then I've moved kind of back farther east now in the span of like 8 months. But I'll be fishing back up in the north again. And I had been catching largemouth over the summer and this fall with that technique. But just seeing how those smallmouth up in the Northeast are
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how that works out up there.
And just, David was also telling me that people were giving him pushback. Well, you don't want to throw that because of muskies and northerns. I'm like, what's wrong with that? If you're not fishing a tournament, it'd be so much fun to see a great big mouth with teeth on it come and just engulf that thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not going to be good for the skibble, but
you'd be surprised though, because with that solid body design, it can take a lot of damage, and it can last.
Okay, so this is not a tube. You're right.
Yep.
This is not a tube. So that's wow. I told him those redfish will tear that thing up, and he's like, "Well, what's the problem with that?"
Yeah. Just buy some more.
Just get them. If I get me a 45 incher, I'll be calling him just giggling, giggling. I can't wait to get out there. I just cannot wait. He's already asked me, have you been out there yet? No, I'm on furlough right now, so no money's coming in. So when that's happening, you kind of have to minimize the amount of money going out too.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, enough of that. I'm really looking forward to using this thing. Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Thank you, David. I really appreciate you bringing me in on this. I'm going to give this as much publicity as I possibly can. And what I want to hear about now, so you won not a BFL, much bigger. You won a Toyota Series.
I did win a Toyota Series. I've been chasing that win for a while on the national level, and I've got a ton of wins at the local and regional level. But I've been close a lot, so it was finally good to seal the deal with that one.
Congratulations. Man. Wow. So first day you had a guy live scoping, and we all thought, live scope is going to be the kiss of death for co-anglers. Obviously it wasn't.
So what people need to realize, it's not going away. Co-anglers, you can either complain about it and throw a fit, or you can figure out how to work around it, because it's going to be there.
You're not a veteran school child. I love it.
Yeah.
Adapt and overcome.
So, what I learned a long time ago is that we have our job. Our job is to figure out how to catch fish no matter what when you're in the back of the boat.
Yes.
Again, I'd much rather be in the front of the boat. My job doesn't allow for me to do that. So at least at the national level. But I drew out a guy, really great guy. He fishes the invitationals, a guy named Jack Daniel Williams, young kid, scoper. And I'm like, all right, well, obviously you're going to be around fish because you've practiced, you put in the time, you can see these fish. And that's a lot of times what people forget is, even though they're targeting specific areas for specific fish, you're in an area with fish. So how do you then forget about what he's doing in the front, figure out of the back how to catch those fish that he's already around. So I was lucky enough, he was positioning himself out towards the main lake, but the back of the boat was close enough to some vertical banks, some
Ledges?
Yeah, some ledges that had some laydowns on them. And then every once in a while, we'd kind of swing around where I can hit a couple of docks on a super long cast. And again, you just got to take what's in front of you, or in this case, what's behind you in the back of the boat, and just cover as much water as you can. And actually that day, I was able to catch a good 11-pound limit behind him, which I thought was great. And it was really going to put me in a great position. And 3 of them came off of the bluff walls that had laydowns on them, some steep stuff. And then 2 of them came off of making long casts of the docks that I could barely reach while he was scoping. But it turns out later in the day, I was pretty good with my 11-pound limit. And it was probably had an hour left in the day, and he was starting to hit some different areas. And we came across the seawall. And in practice, I had a break wall out in front of the docks. So in practice, I had some fun catching some spotted bass out there. And I'm like, all right, I already got a good 11+ pound limit. I'm good. I'm going to go catch just some fun fish while he's doing his thing. So I took out my Drain Crazy Inazuma spinnerbait, and I have to call that out because it's a pretty unique spinnerbait. Arm design, blade design, head design, the whole thing is pretty unique. So I fired down this break wall, and right at the end of it, I'm expecting to catch a 12-inch Kentucky, because that's what lives out there. Almost a little under, it was like a 315 largemouth hit it right on the corner on this spinnerbait. And all of a sudden I call out, I make a 3-pound call and I get up to 15 pounds.
Wow.
Like that. Not even, I was trying, but I wasn't expecting that. Because all I'd caught off of those all week was just small ones. So that was pretty cool. All my other fish that day were caught on a jewel jig, a flipping jig around the docks and around the bluff walls and laydowns, like I mentioned, with a pack craw. And
pack craw.
Yeah, that's from net bait.
I love the pack craws. They're hollow body.
Yep. So what was interesting to me in practice, because I got 2 days of practice with one of my buddies, and we were both flipping jigs, and he was just catching the hell out of them. I wasn't. And of course, in the practice, I can throw, where he's throwing and stuff like that without worrying about it. And then I noticed that he had really big pinchers on his craw, and I didn't. Had a more compact. So I made a mental note of that. And then before the first day of the tournament, I went out and bought a bunch of the American Bait Works craws that had the biggest, the pack of craws had the really big pinchers on them. And I just started catching fish. And I went through, I think I only bought 2 bags of them, and I went through them the first day. And I ended up catching 15 pounds with that big fish. And my guy that was scoping only had 14 pounds.
Ooh.
So but he was happy because I was completely out of his way. I never encroached on him, never even came close, fishing 2 completely different ways. And he was fishing drop shots and wacky worms, and I'm, power fishing with super long casts, just staying out of his way. So there are ways to catch fish behind scopers, and he was super happy that I caught my limit. He was more happy that I wasn't messing with his fish because my job was to find my own fish. So we were able to make that work, and that day 1 bag actually ended up being the biggest bag of the tournament for the co-anglers.
Nice.
So I was sitting in first place after day 1, and that's coming off of a Kentucky Lake tournament where I was also sitting in first place after day 1. In Kentucky Lake, I kind of fell apart the last 2 days. I didn't really fall apart. It was just super tough fishing. And I think I had 17 pounds the first day, and then I think 2 fish the second day and no fish the third day. But the conditions were changing, but we made the most of it. So I'm sitting there after day 1, leading again for the second tournament in a row, and just thinking, how do I seal the deal on this? So my day 2 guy, Tom Lloyd, who when I used to live in the Midwest, I knew him. He's a big flipper, flipping jigs. He was a vacuum. Only caught 3 fish on the jig behind him all day. He was catching a bunch. He had a decent day. So go back to the spinnerbait. So in my mind, it's later in the day again, and I'm thinking, well, I threw the spinnerbait before. Can lightning strike twice? And so I start literally first or second cast, just burning a spinnerbait down the edge of the docks because he's flipping the docks. We were working forward, and I made a long cast to the back corner of a dock. But as I'm reeling it in, he hit the trolling motor, so we start moving fast. So I have to try to catch up to it, and so it doesn't get caught. And as soon as I got to the back corner of the dock, another big one, I caught a 5-1 largemouth, 5-pounder. But I'm trying to get it around the backside of the dock as he's moving forward to get to the next dock. And he stopped, and he was, but you can't slow down the boat as it's going. So I just figured I was going to lose it. But, luckily, instead of the fish burying into the dock and the cables, it went out to open water, and I was able to get it. So now that's 2 big fish in a row, 2 days in a row on that Inazuma, that exact same spinnerbait from Drain Crazy. And without those 2 big fish, I mean, that was 10 pounds of I think I caught 35 pounds, a third of my weight was on those 2 fish on that one spinnerbait. So there's some a little special to that one, at least as far as I'm concerned. So I had 4 fish that second day that went 10 something. So my other fish weren't that big, but it still kept me in second place. And then the third day, I drew out a local guy, really, really good local guy. His name's Roger Fitzpatrick, wins every tournament down there. I was super happy to draw him because he's so strong, but I knew how tough it would be to fish behind him. So I'm like, all right, I made the final day again. I'm feeling pretty good. So he tells me he's going to be scoping. I'm like, all right, that's fine. And he's like, I'd appreciate it if you just leave these alone to me because, I caught 18 pounds here yesterday on our first spot. So I'm like, fine, do whatever you want. But again, where he positioned, there was 3 docks, a long cast length away. And before he caught a single fish, I had caught 1 keeper off of each of those 3 docks. So I'm sitting with like 8 pounds already first thing in the morning. And he thought that was cool. He thought that was the coolest thing. And he kept thanking me about, hey, great job staying out of my way. You did your job. You let me have my fish. But then it got really tough because then he started flipping really close and I didn't catch anything. I didn't catch anything the rest of the day behind him until I probably only had about 6 pounds because I didn't have that big a fish. And I'm in my mind thinking, is 6 pounds going to be enough? I was 2 pounds behind the guy in front of me in first place. So I'm thinking I'm not going to have a chance. So late in the day, probably 2 o'clock for a 3 o'clock weigh in, we're leaving. And he stopped short and he said, let's make a cast on this point. Just wide open point, rock point. He says, I've caught fish here before. So I make a cast, long cast with my jewel jig again with the same pack of craw on it. All of a sudden I felt something funny and I set the hook and up comes almost a 4-pounder.
Wow.
On the jig. It was like a 310 or something like that. Again, just random stopping. A lot of this game is luck, especially when you're in the back of the boat, because he was on plane getting ready to leave. And then he stopped short and said, hey, let's try a couple of casts here. So I was able to get that one in the boat, and that was the one that actually sealed the deal. I ended up winning by about 2 pounds.
Nice.
So that last fish on that last spot, because mind you, I caught 3 fish right away in the morning on those 3 docks, and I didn't catch anything until the end of the day on that last spot. So it was pretty cool having that jewel jig work for me as a really great tool, flipping the docks, and then having that combination with the spinnerbait, the Inazuma spinnerbait, catching those big fish for me.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome. You know, it does my heart good to see a guy like you do so well. I know that once your life frees up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll be back at it again. It's been pretty tough with the job. This time last year I'm in the casino business, so I was overseeing 3 casinos in Pennsylvania, and then by December I had gotten moved. Actually, January I got moved to Omaha, Nebraska, running a couple of casinos there for a completely different company. And then after 7 months, they said, "Hey, we love what you're doing. Go to Columbus, Ohio. We got a really nice property for you to run all by yourself." So that's where I am. I'm sitting in my casino hotel in Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio, man. You're not that far away from Lake Erie.
Trust me, I know that area well. Sandusky, Presque Isle, and quite frankly, Detroit River and Lake St. Clair as well are going to be visited often next year.
Wow. In Lake Erie, man, if you can sort through the sheep's heads, there are some monsters.
Yes.
Was it true that a 10-pound smallmouth was caught in Lake Erie?
I'm sure there was.
Yeah,
there's ones much bigger than that out there. Again, Lake Erie is like an ocean out there, and there are fish out in the nether regions that a boat can't even get to that have never seen a lure.
Well, ever since the gobies got into Lake Erie,
Yeah.
actually got into the Great Lakes, because I know we just started seeing a monster fish up in Green Bay after the gobies finally got up there.
Yeah, those are just huge bundles of protein that they can just gorge themselves on endlessly. And,
And, I was around when they got in, and I mean, the naysayers were all doom and gloom. Western civilization is going to fall because of this. And he said the same thing about the zebra mussels, and look what those did to Lake St. Clair.
Yeah. I mean, they are frustrating when you have to fish around them because they're very, they're not line friendly, but man, water quality is best it's ever been. Couple that with the gobies, and you can see what's happening. I mean, you're looking at 30-pound bags in these places when it used to be 12 to 14.
The only thing I could figure out is just tying directly to braid and take your chances.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't get as many bites as we used to when we used mono, but hey, the fish are bigger.
Yeah, they are.
And it's a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, man, I had a heck of a lot of fun having you on the show again. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, David, we talked a little bit about him bringing me on with Drain Crazy. I really appreciate his confidence in me. And, we built a lot of cool stuff together in the past with the team, and looking forward to doing the same with this company. Razor Rods, obviously, I've been with them a long time. Lose, I've been with Lose for probably 12, 13 years now. And I always pair it with my Seagar line. I'm a huge Seagar line fan. And just in the last couple of years, a couple of new companies with me are Epic Baits, Tungsten, Hayabusa Hooks, and Hoosier Bait Company. They have a really cool line of soft plastics that are kind of specific to smallmouth and up in the Great Lakes area, but they work great all over the country. So yeah, I've really got some great companies, and there's one, Jewel. Obviously, we talked about Jewel and G2 Gemini, my sponsor for my jerseys. But the one thing I do want to talk about is, and I still don't understand why guys aren't doing this, side pot fishing. I have made a lot of money in this side pot. It's only $100 entry fee. They keep $10. It's a 90% payback. You don't have to sign up for anything. There's no, a lot of these contingency programs, you have to spend like $100 to get into it, or you have to buy something first before you're even eligible. This is just a true side pot. You put in your money, and however many guys are in it, you split it up at the end. And there's guys, there's been tournaments personally where I'm finishing 45th place out of the money, but because I got in the side pot money, I'm making more than like the 10th place guy got.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love it. I've been doing it for a couple of years now. I think I've probably won, 3, 4 of the side pots. There's guys out there that have won 8 or 9 side pots. It's a really cool way to, support a new company and really get some money back in addition, because everybody's doing these contingencies and these bonus programs, but there's very few of them that don't have that kind of little string attached where you have to do something first and, pay some extra money. This is just pay the money. You do it once. You don't ever have to do it again. You can do it for every tournament.
So how would a guy find out more about this?
Sidepotfishing.com.
There you go. And also, guys, Drank Crazy. If you see the scroll bar down at the bottom of the screen, drankcrazy-intl.com. Go ahead and check that out. We have so many cool. David Swinside knows his stuff. I have a lot of respect.
And Jay, this is a Japanese company. JDM is super hot right now. Everybody's looking towards, the Japanese companies because they've come out with such creative stuff over the years. And you see guys out on tour in the Elite Series that are over here from Japan, and they're just kicking butt using these types of things. And a lot of time they're so secretive about it, even when they're on day 4 of the Elite Series and they're catching fish, they're still hiding them and not letting people see what it's all about. And that's, this is one of those companies that offer some really creative stuff, some really cool technology. For example, they've got solid core crankbaits. It's called a Deros model. Just imagine like a super durable, hard plastic crankbait, but it's solid core. You don't have to worry about it cracking or chipping or getting water infusion to ruin the how it works, the performance. It's really cool. So it's not just
you accidentally hit a concrete wall with it. It doesn't shatter like I've had happen to some of them.
It absolutely does not, because I'm not that good of a caster, and I've done that a few times.
Well, even if you're a fantastic caster, it gets caught by the wind and whoosh. Oh, come on.
Oh yeah, I've done that to some very high-end baits, and I've abused these things, and they're still running strong today. So
it happens. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, but there's just a lot of cool stuff on their website. Definitely go in. It's broken up into hard baits, soft baits, and then wire baits like the spinner baits and buzz baits. They got some cool stuff. They also have some frogs. Man, I tell you what, I caught so many fish. It's called a pulsar frog. It's a small, almost a finesse version of a frog. But man, I've caught some, and it's a single hook lure, which I was a little hesitant about first because so many frogs are just those big beefy double hooks.
Yeah.
But for those guys that are kind of familiar with JDM stuff, there was a frog years ago that's still pretty popular called the Slither K. And I almost kind of liken it to that type of a frog, that kind of finesse power fishing.
Yes.
So that's out there. But a new one they created is a super lifelike frog, and you'll see it on the website. It's called the Whipper, WHIPPER. And I have not got my hands on it yet, but I've seen a lot of videos, and man, it just looks like a real baby frog swimming around.
Leave it up to David to push the art of finesse fishing. Remember the art of silent catcher?
Yep. Oh yeah.
He just pushes the art of finesse fishing, and I am Man, I love finesse fishing. I just love it. Even though I'm one of the most impatient people in the world, when it comes to finesse fishing, I just know. I'm just waiting for that line to twitch. I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I love the wacky rig.
Yep. And that comes from, again, that's Japanese techniques. It's so popular over there and such highly pressured. I mean, there's guys out there using 1 and 2 pound line and
Yes.
just super finesse. All these fuzzy dice baits all came from Japan. All this wild stuff that you'd never seen before is all just taking the market by storm now. And companies like Drain Crazy are involved with that and offering the same product. So
Well, hey, David, that's David. Oh my goodness, Mike.
you can
Mike.
call me David. I wish I was as smart as he was.
Yeah, don't we all? That's about all the time we have for tonight. But guys, I know it's only Tuesday, but man, Tuesday is a great day to plan your weekend fishing. I know down here we're going to get our first good cold front tomorrow. Yes. That means the fish are going to come in from the ocean into the marshes again. That means that the bass are going to start putting the feed bag on down here. And up north, man, the first cold front was actually up north when the guys hit the woods for deer hunting. That's when I started chasing smallmouth.
Yeah, and I'm getting excited too because I've got one tournament left this year, and I leave on Friday to head down to Oklahoma for the Toyota Series National Championship at Grand Lake. So I am hoping that my good run for the last 2 years continues and that they have their feed bags on.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. I'm going to be watching you. Good luck. Good luck, Mr. Mike.
All right. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it again. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for tuning into the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. Remember, I can't do it without you guys watching. And Mike, I definitely can't do this podcast without quality people like you to come and tell the folks how you catch fish. Mike, stick around. Everybody else, I'm going to end the podcast with that. And thank you for tuning in.
Good night.